Hi, Pete's fans. Welcome to another episode of For Pete's Sake. We are recording our first official episode of the 2025 year. The calendar has flipped. Hopefully, your 2025 is off to a great start. Mine has been okay so far. One weekend, I've been sticking to my resolutions, and hopefully, I can make it till at least the end of the week, but we will see how it goes. I am your co-host, Josh Reeser. As always, next to me in the chair, co-host, twin brother, encyclopedia of OHL knowledge, Matt Reeser. On today's show, we are recapping the Pete's Northern Road Trip, which saw them make stops in North Bay, Sault Ste. Marie, and Sudbury. We will have those games for you. They also had an additional game against Niagara, so we will throw that in there. 4 games to recap. We will have our 3 stars of the week who stood out on that tough northern road trip. And we'll have some news and notes from around the OHL. It is about to get real busy with that trade deadline coming up the end of this week, just right around the corner. We'll also give our thoughts and takes on maybe some potential moves for the maroon and white as well. And then we will look ahead. The Petes will finally, it seems like it was only about a week or so. It seems like they've been away from the PMA or the Peterborough Memorial Center forever, but they are returning to play another home game. And we will have that for you, as well as upcoming games to highlight as well. So we got a packed show for you. Without further ado, we will dive in. First things first, it's probably well known by now, but we want to officially welcome and announce the signing of import selection Rio Kaiser, selected in the first round of the 2023 import draft. 31st overall. Tough to miss because he is a giant man at 6'7". I have him listed as 215 to 220 pounds, depending on which source you look at. So he is a force on the ice. I was excited when we drafted him. I was hoping he would come right over last year. He took a year, stayed over in Germany, played last year and the first little bit of this year over in Berlin. He was in the German Elite League. He was in the German Elite League, the second tier Elite League, and a little bit in the U20s over the past year and a half as well. But he did get a stretch of games up in that pro league, which can only benefit having played with men. He did recently just finish playing for Germany at the World Junior Challenge in Ottawa. And then he just stayed over in North America. So I'm sure the Petes were down there chatting with him while he was here in North America, convinced him to sign his OHL scholarship agreement. And he has already suited up for a couple games with the Petes, wearing number 17, a giant tower of power out there. Looks like he doesn't put up huge offensive numbers, but he's known more as a real tough shutdown defender and, like we said, a giant man on the ice. So I look forward to welcoming him to Peterborough, and I really look forward to watching him lay the body and skate that huge frame around the ice, much like Zdeno Chara did for the Senators and for those Boston Bruins back in the day. I hope he can be an absolute force, and I'm excited for that signing as well. So welcome officially Rio Kaiser to the maroon and white. We hope you have you feel welcome, and we hope you're a fantastic addition to a squad, which I'm sure you will be. Welcome aboard. Good to have you. So without further ado there, we are going to jump into our game recaps. Like I said, it was a busy week, 4 of them on the docket. Maddie's going to take us through a couple. I'll recap a couple as well. So we'll start with the closest foe, which was down in St. Catharines, the Niagara Ice Dogs. And how did that one go, Maddie?
Yeah, so the Petes and Niagara, despite being very different in the standings this year, like Niagara's been near the top, the Petes have always played them really strong this year. Mm-hmm. They won one on their home ice in overtime, where Gavin Bryant won in overtime. They've had I think they've all been decided by one goal.
Yeah.
And they've kind of played with Niagara all season. This one was no different. It ended 3-2 in favor of Niagara, but it was very spirited. Both teams got tons of power plays in this one. I think that was the difference in this one, actually. The Petes had 6 power plays on the night and didn't score once. And Niagara ended up 1 for 5 on the power play. So the penalty kills were both great from both sides. But when you get 6 power plays and you can't put one in, it usually doesn't go well for your team. And the Petes actually lost a forward in this one because Francis Parrish got tossed for a check to the head. The replay was kind of iffy on whether he should have been kicked out, I thought.
Yep.
But the ref saw something and he was thrown out and got a 2-game suspension. And he brings energy to this team. I think he's more valuable than a lot of us recognize. His line was kind of going really well with Levesque. And Addy at one point, they were kind of the best line against Ottawa the game before.
Yeah.
So getting him out of the lineup kind of hurt. It also leaves you with less forwards. I know it was late in the game in the third period, but it still doesn't allow you to roll the guys you want to roll for the rest of the game, especially when you have so many games and so many nights, 5 games in 8 days.
For sure.
But the Petes would jump out to a 2-0 lead in this one, which was good to see. Carson Cameron got them on the board off a drawn-up play after the TV timeout, which was nice to see them execute. And then Gavin Bryant got on the board on his former team off a really nice feed from Caden Taylor. He sold the shot so well and then just fed it over to him, and it was just a one-timer in the back of the net for Bryant.
Beauty.
Taylor's really elevated his game since the break, I thought.
Yeah.
He's looking really comfortable now.
Agreed.
Getting points in pretty much every game, or if he isn't, he's really noticeable. Really nice to see, and Bryant's really taken his game to a new level too. Niagara though would get a goal 15 seconds after the Petes went up 2-0, and then they would tie it less than 2 minutes later, and it would be 2-2 after the first period. And it actually stayed that way until the third period, with about 5 minutes left, when a innocent shot from the point just redeflected and went in the back of the net. Not much you can do there, because without Easton Rye making 15 saves in the first period, because the Petes got heavily outplayed in that first period, it's not close. But the Petes held it to 2-2 with one of the better teams in the East, and then that weird deflection goes in, and Niagara skates away with the win. But I like their effort. It's just a tough loss because, again, came right after the 10-second loss. And then,
yeah, I was going to say it's back-to-back tough losses. Then that can be so hard for a team when you play a near good game, almost for 60 minutes. The Ottawa game was almost it was 11 seconds left, and then this one the final 5. So like you said, back-to-back tough ones.
Yeah, but you're seeing, I'd say, more unity on the front end. You're seeing, I'd say, more offensive flair from this team since the break they've come back. And Carson Cameron's going offensively, so that's always a good thing when he starts to get more confident with the puck.
For sure.
But again, you don't get any points, and you start the road trip with a loss, which is tough, especially when you're a young team. But then they go to North Bay on the Thursday, and this one was North Bay just kind of came out and used their speed, and their veterans just kind of didn't really give the Petes a chance in this one. I know it was close at one point, but this was the Zach Bowen classic, trying to steal his team a win. He made several highlight saves, going across the crease, making glove saves, diving back, making breakaway saves. I think he made 3 shorthanded breakaway saves on the night. So the only reason for me this one was really close is because Bowen was standing on his head. For instance, the Petes did not record more than 10 shots in a single period. And we were still tied 1-1 and only trailed 2-1 until under 5 minutes left in the game. So again, you're kind of getting the idea that this was, I think the shots were 40-23 for North Bay. Gavin Bryant continued his hot streak, scoring the only Pete's goal. It was one where McCallum kind of read that if he took a shot, it would rebound and Bryant would be right there. So really heads-up play by McCallum. But again, the special teams battle was the difference in this one. North Bay scored 2 shorthanded goals, and they got a power play marker. So 3 of their goals came on the special teams. And And like I said, without Bowen, this game was going to be a runaway for North Bay. The Petes did draw penalties, but they went 0 for 5, and like I said, 2 shorthanded goals isn't gonna win you a road game. And then at one point, McCallum, I don't know if you saw this, but McCallum got kneed.
Yeah.
And there was no penalty.
Yeah.
He was like down,
Yeah.
and they had to stop the game. And there was clearly, if you saw the replay, it was a knee on knee.
Yeah.
And thankfully, he returned to the game and he was fine. But the fact still is that he clearly got tripped, kneed, interfered with.
Yeah.
And there was no call. And it was at a very important part in the game where maybe if the Petes got a power play, they tie the game up.
Yeah, I was surprised they didn't at least,
Yeah.
I don't know, at least 2.
Yeah.
I was surprised. I mean, I'm biased. It's hard for me not to be biased, but whether it's intentional or not, it's so hard to say. We have the luxury of fans of seeing it in slow motion.
Yeah.
The refs don't.
They did, though, after they saw the replay.
Yeah, I know. They did review it, so they do have the chance to switch it. It still doesn't show you intent.
Yeah.
It just kind of shows you where contact was made. I thought it was at least a 2.
Yeah.
That's probably where I would have landed on it.
Yeah.
Certainly nothing was a little suspicious in my mind.
Yeah. I wasn't saying he should get tossed.
Yeah.
But at least a minor penalty.
Yep. I would have given him I think a minor for kneeing would have been warranted at that point.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
But again, another loss. Tough loss. But you can't say enough about Bowen in this one. Mm-hmm. And I think it was just maybe their legs caught up to them. Mm-hmm. Hard to say. They started kind of moving their defense pairings around a bit. I don't know if that was kind of them getting used to each other, but they put Ula with Cameron. At one point. They had Strohack with, they moved him around to put him with Matachuk, and yeah, they're trying to see if they have different pairings, and
for sure,
which isn't a bad idea.
For sure. Yeah, well, anyways, he had tough 2 losses to start the road trip, and unfortunately wouldn't get any easier as the Petes continue and they make their way to the most northern team they will face, the Soo Greyhounds. Always a tough road trip out there, and I'm sure the guys were feeling some bus legs. They took on the Greyhounds, and it was a 4-0 loss. 4-0 for those Greyhounds. I'm not sure how many fans actually tuned in, because at the same time, Team Canada was playing Czechia at the World Juniors, and we have our own thoughts about that and what ended up being an underwhelming tournament, which I'm sure a lot of us still have not gotten over and could question a lot of the decisions, but that's for a different time. Anyways, the Petes came out a little bit on the flat side, I would say, and the Greyhounds came out the opposite, flying, scoring 3 goals in the first 10 minutes. They took over right from the get-go. It was 3-0 before you could kind of get settled. They threw 17 shots on net in the first period. The rest of the game, for context, only 13 shots. So that was where they did most of their damage, and then they just held on. The Petes looked a little bit tired. And they couldn't really get back into the game. The damage had already been done. The Greyhounds would add a goal in that third period to make it 4-0. The highlight for the Petes was Rio Kaiser. As we mentioned, this was his first game with the boys. Nice for him to get in there. Made his debut. He looked okay. He looked like he was still kind of feeling it out a bit, but he led the team actually with 3 shots from the back end. He did get a penalty for roughing, and he looked like a guy, that was just getting his feet wet in the OHL. Certainly didn't look out of place, and looks like a guy that can build off something. So a nice first game for him. Couldn't get the win, but nice for him to join the team, and maybe nice for him to join the team on a road trip. There's more time to bond with the guys, in the hotel rooms or out to dinner or some team activities. So hopefully they made the big German feel welcome, and I hope that we can, as we with some upcoming home games as well. But fortunately, after a 4-0 loss like that, the Petes didn't have to wait too long, as a couple days later they had a matinee in Sudbury to finish off their northern road trip, and this one was a different story, with the Petes picking up a victory, 5-1. You know what that means? It's Ric Flair time. Woo! We got a win I love a Pete's win, especially against Sudbury Wolves, who I believe have become a very chippy and a rivalry for the Petes. Every game, the past couple of years especially, seems to be very, very rough with these guys. So I like beating them. It's not to the point of London or Oshawa or anything like that, don't get me wrong. But when we can go beat those Wolves or beat them on home ice, I like it. I think it's a bonus. So a 5-1 shellacking is just what the doctor ordered to salvage the road trip, which still, wasn't great. They you lose 3 out of 4, but you come back with something and momentum to build off. So anyways, like I said, final score 5-1. No penalties for either team in the first period. Were we going to see a clean game? Absolutely not. That changed quickly in the second. Multiple fights, including a tilt by newest Pete, Rio Kaiser. And Maddie and I were discussing this before the show. If you ever see a clip from back in the day, Zdeno Chara of the Ottawa Senators versus Brian McCabe, he kind of picks up Brian McCabe and just throws him around like he's nothing, like he's a rag doll. Very similar in this stance. Rio Kaiser just absolutely throwing the other guy around, using his size. And the other guy wasn't small. No. So nice for Rio Kaiser to, show that his toughness from the back end. He laid an absolutely massive hit as well. So we know what kind of player he's going to be. And it's nice to have him for those games like Sudbury. More games when we play against Ottawa. We know they have some pests like Stonehouse. And those teams that are those really nitty-gritty teams. It'll be nice to have him on the back end there with Strohak now. I think we have one of the toughest defense back there now with some guys that can throw him. Even Liam Ladd's, another fight for him as well. That's 2 on the year. And he looked pretty good, threw a punch that knocked the other guy's helmet off. So very, very good from a toughness aspect, not backing down from those Wolves. And even more impressively, 5 goals, including 3 on the power play for those Petes. Nico Addy, we've been praising him for using his size, his speed, his size and his shot, and the improvements he's made in his foot speed to get him some space. We thought it was just a moment or a matter of time before he got on the board, and we were correct. 2 consecutive goals for Nico Addy. Was it 24 seconds apart or something like that? Within a minute. Some very nice goals. So good to see him. We know he works hard. We know he's a big body. And if he gets going with his shot and his size, he could actually absolutely do some damage. Carson Cameron, Jonathan Malee, and my boy Quentin Page added the other goals for a great team effort. The third period, has continued to see some more rough stuff. Strohak and Street got in a fight. No goals from either side. And Bowen locked it down, making 12 saves in that period. So the Petes come away with a 5-1 victory. They won on the score sheet. I think they won in the fights. I'm biased again, but I think they showed that they can't be pushed around. And so it's a great, great way for the Petes to come back, ending what was a tough road trip, feeling good about themselves. Loved it, loved it, loved it.
Yeah.
Some overall thoughts on these four games. Couple too many odd man rushes, forcing goalies to make those difficult saves. Petes need to clean that up a little bit. Need to get their power play going. It wasn't good enough in some of those losses. You go 0 for 6, 0 for 5, and then you give up some shorties. Not great. And then you see, when they get 3 on the power play, it's obviously, you don't expect it. It's unrealistic to expect it to be 3 for 5 every night. But it needs to be something closer to that than 0 for 5. And it needs to, at the very least, generate some momentum. So, I don't know. One thing I was thinking, I don't know if you agree, they used to with... I naturally go Zdeno Chara when I think of Rio Kaiser, but when he was with Ottawa, they used to put him out front of the net on the power play because he's this ginormous dude. So you can't move him as a defenseman, and then he's a screener. So I wonder if they consider that, throwing Rio Kaiser out front of the net. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. They do have some some guys that have been playing there for a bit longer, so maybe you want to give them a bit more time instead of throwing the new guy in right away. But if their power play scuffles and they need a new look, I'd consider it. I'd love to see the big powering German tower of power out front of the net and have those goalies struggle to see. And I think it'd be a hoot for those defensemen to try and push him out of the way. I do not think they would have success. And on the nose of Rio Kaiser, he's in the mix. He's another defenseman, and he's another import. So what do you think that means in terms of plan with the defense? They now have a bit of a crowded blue line. Some young guys they want to get ice time to. I don't know how you see it, but I think it's still a very, very positive thing that he's over here. I think it gives you a lot of interesting opportunities, some depth. It may hurt some minutes for some younger guys. You know, we haven't seen Meritet in a while. Eula seems to be playing quite a bit. I wonder if he's gained the trust of the coaches. Gowan was playing pretty well heading into the break as well. Jenkins injured. So when he's back, you know, they could have a pretty veteran lineup, or maybe they mix in some younger guys and maybe even some of the vets sit depending on how they're playing, or maybe you just go with the hot hand and, you know, whoever's playing well continues to play, and you know, competition breeds improvement. So maybe that's the way you go. I don't know how you see it, but...
Or maybe somebody gives them a forward for a defense.
Yeah, that's another thing too. There could be moves ahead of the deadline. I know the Petes have been in conversation with their Czech import that they drafted this year as well. So I'm not suggesting that we trade Matacek by any means, but you know, if there was something there, you know, he's something that could fetch a return, and then there's a defenseman gone. Again, that's just speculation from me. I have no official news on that whatsoever. I'm just talking here. But yeah, it's a very interesting and I think good problem to have, is some capable defensemen back there. So we'll see how they work those guys in.
Yeah.
Anyway, our 3 stars of the week. We will go through, as always, it's hard to pick because every week there's some guys that are deserving. There's more than 3. But we'll start with Gavin Bryant. 2 goals, 2 assists on the trip. Looked like a guy that was finishing well, looked motivated to play. He was the bright spot in a few of those tough Northern losses as well. Second, Carson Cameron, 2 goals and an assist, starting to find his offensive game. We'll talk about it in just a few minutes, but we got the CHL prospects game, or the OHL prospect game, coming up next week. So maybe he's getting fired up looking for that. And he started off the second half showing some of his offensive game. And third, Nico Addy, like we said, one of our boys we like to watch and have good success. He got rewarded with 2 goals, got power play momentum going against Sudbury as well. Big body, great shot, creating space out there. He's been working his tail off, and it is nice to see him get rewarded with 2 goals. So well done, Nico Addy. Big part of that win against the Sudbury Wolves. All right, and now it's time to go around the league. We got some news and notes here. Like we said, the trade deadline is January 10th, so expect
Friday?
Yeah, I believe that's Friday this week. So we are filming on Monday the 6th, so expect a lot of moves around the league, and we'll try and keep you updated, and I'm sure we'll have some in our next video recording as well, going over some of the ones that we think are significant, including one that we will mention in just a few minutes. But we'll start with just an overall standings update. Top teams in the Western Conference came out of the break continuing their winning ways with high offense numbers. Windsor, 36 goals in 5 games. London, 24 goals in 4 games. So those teams have come out of the break firing on all cylinders offensively. The Sudbury Wolves, who the Petes just played, they came out of the break strong as well, winning 3 of 4. And the other loss was actually an overtime loss to Kitchener. So they came out firing. Nice for the Petes to go humble them a bit and beat them 5-1. The Guelph Storm have begun selling off some of their veteran players. They're in the bottom of the standings in the West, and I think only 3 points up on the Petes still. Trading away a goalie Gillespie, trading him
Steelheads.
away off to the Steelheads. So the Steelheads are continuing to, looks like, add some pieces and prove that they are better than their team showing in the standings so far, which I believe is true. And then a big trade in Barrie. We saw earlier in the year they acquired Dylan Wakely from the North Bay Battalion. They have gone out and made what I think is a very smart move, acquiring Owen Van Steetzel and Anthony Romani, who were dynamite on the same line as Wakely for the last couple years from North Bay. Trading away their 5th overall pick from this year, Parker Vaughn, an overage forward, and 4 draft picks. There's a mix of draft picks in there, 4th rounders from 2027, which are conditional, I think, and then a 6th and a 7th rounder as well.
One of the bars is in there.
One of the draft picks is actually from the Petes, as Matt just mentioned. So, and a very, very interesting trade. It's reuniting that top line from North Bay, who the Petes are very, very familiar with. They were a very, very strong offensive unit, especially last year. So those guys are reunited in Barrie. Barrie, the top team in the East, clearly going for it. So I think it's a great move. They already have chemistry with each other. You did have to give up a 5th overall pick, so Parker Vaughn, could become that cornerstone player in North Bay, and North Bay certainly hoping that he does. But you have to give stuff in order to get stuff. So I think it's a strong move, and I think Barrie now has a line that you absolutely have to watch out for. And we'll mention in just a few minutes. It won't be too long before the Petes get to find out. So the trade deadline, like we said, on the 10th, we'll keep you updated. Any more moves like that one, but that has certainly set the bar for trades coming up. Also coming up, I mentioned a few minutes ago, it's the OHL Top Prospects game. This year, it is the inaugural Connor McDavid OHL Top Prospects game. It's an East versus West format, and it is January 15th in Brantford. 2 Petes will be represented there, Carson Cameron and Aiden Young, who have both had very good seasons. I'd say Carson Cameron was probably tabbed before the season starts, and Aiden Young, I would say, more played his way onto the roster with a very, very strong start. So wishing both of those guys a very solid game. Kudos to them. And hopefully it's a shot in the arm and motivation for them to put on a good show for the Scouts. But as we look around the OHL there, what are your thoughts on some of those moving pieces, Matty? And any thoughts on potential moves from the Petes? Again, no inside information, just as fans. What are you kind of seeing or hoping?
Yeah, it's going to be tough because there's some good teams, and they're all going to want to beef up, and they're all going to probably counter what the other teams do.
Yep.
Like if Windsor does something, you can bet London and Kitchener are probably going to be thinking about doing something.
Yep.
I think Barrie doing something. Now Oshawa, probably Niagara is probably looking, what should we do to stay competitive? Because they're close enough.
Yep.
The East is still wide open.
Yep.
London's pretty stacked.
Yep.
Kitchener, but you don't want to ruin your chemistry either, right? So
yeah,
for me, I think you've got a few sellers. I think you've already seen Guelph is selling. They've still got Luchenko, who could go somewhere. Owen Sound will definitely be selling. There's rumors that Connor Smith's on the trade block.
Yeah, I saw that. Looking to move the captain.
Could him and Carter George go as a package somewhere, and you get a defenseman that's one and a stud goalie?
Absolutely.
I hate to say it. I could see Oshawa being that team.
Yeah.
I don't want them to be that team. They've already completed a deal with Owen Sound for Barlow. Oshawa's goal against isn't great.
Yep.
So do you bring in a Carter George to solidify your goaltending?
And then a huge defenseman that can absolutely lock it down back there. Yeah, interesting.
North Bay's unloading, like we've seen. They have the 2 LeBlanc brothers who are both very skilled players who can know how to win.
Yep.
Would they go somewhere? And then to me, I think the Soo are probably selling.
Yep.
So is Gibson from the Greyhounds, the defenseman, going to be gone?
Yeah.
You could always use a big defenseman in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So it will be tough to see, but I think my biggest prediction is I think you'll see Carter George in an Oshawa jersey by the end of the deadline.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hate to say it, but I think he'll be there.
Yeah, I could see that too, unfortunately. Carter George is a phenomenal goalie. He's been great for a couple of years now. You can see why he was a high NHL pick. He was definitely one of the bright spots on the, a tough world junior squad this year. He got a shutout. I thought he kept Canada in some games where they didn't deserve to be in them based on play. With Owen Sound out of it, near the bottom of the standings, I think absolutely he'll go somewhere. Oshawa does make a lot of sense, like you said, with the goals they give up. I'm hoping he goes somewhere else, maybe Western Conference, stay out there. We don't want to see him very much because he is a great goalie. And he did score a goal against us earlier in the year. So, hopefully they keep him more away, but I could definitely see where you're going there. What about Pete's? Do you have any thoughts or any inkling? Again, just as fans, not as insiders. My thoughts are, I don't know if you agree with this, we don't have to do too much.
No.
We're not in a complete tear it down stage like we were last year, where there was a clear agenda to get younger and get rid of some of our more experienced veterans. We did that last year.
Yeah.
Now we're in, let's try and build it back. We're in the first full year of having our young core together. So I think, there will probably be a couple moves.
Yeah.
I think it's more a respect to the older guys.
Yeah.
I don't think this year has gone the way we hoped it would.
No.
So if you want to give those players, out of respect, another shot at a playoff run, or if they came to you and said, look, my OHL career is nearing its end, I would like another shot at a championship.
Yeah.
You have those discussions. In terms of return, like you said, ideally you don't want to mess too much with the chemistry.
No.
So I don't think you want to make drastic moves just for the sake of shaking things up. I think the rest of this year is on, improving your play, getting some wins, but building that chemistry towards next year. So I think if there's guys you're hoping will be around that are going to contribute next year, you hang on to those and you don't even really have discussions about them. I think the young core is in place.
Yeah.
I think some of the veterans should stay in place as well to keep and guide them along the way. But if there's guys, like I said, that, want a shot at a chip and they come and ask you, you certainly, out of respect for what they've done for the Petes for the past couple of years, you go that way.
Yeah.
In terms of return, I mean, you look at a player, like I said, that can help more immediately than a young guy. Just because we're hoping to be contending, I'd say next year after, we're hoping to be back in the playoffs. So you got to get a return like that, or a bevy of picks that can be flipped into a player, next year or the year after at the deadline, that can be flipped into a player that helps us. So that's what I'm kind of expecting. I don't have a specific name for you because, like I said, not an insider, just a fan here. But that's what I would do. That's what I'm expecting to see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Like I said, I always put my faith in the GM. He knows what he's doing. He's much more knowledgeable than me. I'm just a fan. So we'll see what moves he's thinking. But that's what I would do. I don't think anything drastic this year, but perhaps a couple moves to get some players some rings.
Yeah.
Or a shot at some rings.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's tough to say. I don't think they, like you said, need to do anything. If you want to turn the crease over to Rye and Johnson, you could see what you get. But they don't need to do that.
Yeah.
Because I like Bowen. He's already been traded once, and that's tough for a kid when you've already been traded. It just depends if people like your veteran guys and are willing to pay a top dollar for them.
Yeah.
But you don't trade them just for the sake of trading them. That doesn't do anything for you. And then the only other thing I think would be cool would be to see Connor Smith go back to Windsor, where he's from, and join the Spitfires for a run.
Yep, absolutely.
And play London and just smoke them.
Yeah, lay some big hits. Yeah. Beat him twice in his OHL career. I would love that. Yeah, let's make that happen. If anyone from the Owen Sound organization listens to this podcast, sign the petition now. We want Connor Smith not in Oshawa. We want him in Windsor beating the London Knights in the playoffs. Make it happen. That is what we will ever be indebted to you guys if you could make that happen. So try and trade him to Windsor. I like it. I like it. Matty Reese with the call right there.
Yeah.
Anyways, well, should we update the week ahead?
Yeah.
Looks like another couple busy games. What do we got on the docket here, Matty Reese?
Yeah. So the Petes head back home for most of this week, which is probably nice for them. Kind of settle back in. It's still a 3-game week, so busy. But the Petes come back to the Memorial Center on Thursday for a matchup against Barrie. Barrie's the top team in the Eastern Conference, so it's not a welcome home moment for an easy team. They're going to have that big line together, probably with Wakely, Romani, and Van Stietzel. They've got Sam Hildebrand, who just won gold with the U.S. in net.
Yeah.
They've got those guys from Team Canada, Aki, and they've got a good team.
Yeah.
They're deep. They've got, I think, 11 guys with 20 points already. So they're a balanced attack. They've added 2 more offensive guys on their team. Not going to be an easy game at all. But the Petes usually rise to the occasion against better teams. So I'm curious to see. It's nice to see what the upper teams are, but it's also nice to see how the Petes compete when they play against a team that's probably should beat them, because they usually rise to the occasion. So I'm curious to see what Barrie has and if they're as legit as we think they are.
Yeah.
Which I think they are legit. I just
for sure
like to see how those top teams play, because we haven't seen them yet.
Yeah, for sure.
And then they stay home and they play Brantford at home on Saturday, which is always a battle. These teams don't like each other. Very obvious if you've ever seen them play in the last 2 years. They get off a lot of pushing after whistles, lots of scrums, lots of fights, lots of offensive firepower on Brantford, though. You got to watch out for Lardis and Thomas and O'Brien. And then they have Leanders and net who can steal a game. And then it's like I said, it's physical. They don't like each other. So it's always a good one to be at. So if you can get down there and see it, the Petes always play to this team as well. So it could be a very good week for them, because they have a team to kind of match up against the best in the East, and then they play a team they're rivals against. So 2 should be barn burners, in my opinion, at home ice.
Absolutely.
And then they go back to Niagara on the Sunday. Again, these teams have played each other close the whole year. They're a fast team, so you got to maintain the gaps, and you got to keep your stick from their feet, because you'll take a lot of penalties if you don't. But 3 big games against Eastern Conference teams, all in the other division. If you want to start climbing into a playoff position, you got to win. So no better way to do it than show the East that you mean business with a big week.
Absolutely. I love it. Well, I'm thinking, out of those 3, I'm thinking 2 wins. Yeah. I'm feeling 2 wins. I like how you said it. I'm thinking a win against Barrie, man. I think Barrie's loaded up. I think they're confident. They should be. They're a great team. But like you said, we play well against good teams. So I'm thinking a win against Barrie. And I think the Petes are going to come out hungry against the Bulldogs with that history as well. So I'm calling 2 wins there. And then, I'll go 2 for 3. With those 2 wins, like I said, come in against the Colts and the Bulldogs. That's what I'm expecting. Yeah. So let's show them, boys. Let's show them that we're proud. Let's welcome Rio Kaiser and all the boys back to the Memorial Center. It feels like I said, like it has been a while. And let's show them how we can get loud and proud to support our maroon and white. It is always a privilege to be able to cheer for those guys. So let's fill the rink. Let's make them feel welcome. And let's get on a bit of a run. Let's finish out the last half of the year, and let's finish. Some of the guys may not be on the team by next week, so let's make sure we let them know they're appreciated and we support them playing and representing Peterborough Petes hockey. Yep. So thanks again for tuning in. We hope, like we said, you guys have started off January well. We certainly have. We look forward to bringing you more content in the upcoming weeks. Thank you so much for tuning in so far. You can find our episodes on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Spotify. We'll have all that information for you on our social media pages on Facebook and on Instagram. If you want to follow us, it's at PTB for Pete's sake. And we'll certainly give you all that info. So thanks again for tuning in. Come support those boys. And as always, go Pete's, go!